It's now time to call on stage the president of PMAI, Mr. Aniket Gore, to deliver a talk on the current status of powder metallurgy in India, as well as the overview of the Indian economy. But let's get ourselves a little more familiar with his journey till date. Mr. Aniket Gore is a chemistry graduate from Mumbai University. He started his commercial innings in 1993 as a medical representative for a MNC. After a 2-year stint, he attended a paint technology manufacturing course and co-established a specialty coating company, Harlequin Coatings, which is today ranked as a top 10 producer in India and a niche renowned supplier of high quality coatings. Mr. Aniket Gore's father, Mr. Mohan Gore, is a fellow of PMAI and has been associated with PMAI since its inception in 1973. Mr. Aniket Gore has been a member and contributor to PMAI activities and initiatives since 1997. Mr. Aniket Gore joined the family business in 1997 and reoriented the traditional family business, shutting their manufacturing activities in veterinary pharmaceuticals and machinery manufacture, and focused on expansion and diversification of the flagship company, Ceramit Consultants Private Limited. Today, Ceramit has evolved into a business strategy and execution house and supplies critical capital equipment and niche raw materials to a number of industries in India. Ceramit have established market leadership for supply of niche solutions to the powder metallurgy, ceramic, magnetic materials, and graphite industries in India. They continue to expand their activity base with supply of niche surface treated minerals to the composite, cosmetic, dental ceramic, rubber and electrical industries. Mr. Aniket Gore is a passionate equity investor since 2006 and is a known name in the Indian investor fraternity. Mr. Gore's family office, together with a consortium of investors, are actively investing in small companies, helping them grow with varied assistance, including mentorship, growth, capital, consulting, business strategy, and supplier as well as customer connects, culminating in taking these companies public via IPO route. Mr. Gore also presents sectoral and thematic ideas at various investor conferences. And now, ladies and gentlemen, let's hear from the man himself. Can we have a huge round of applause as I request Mr. Aniket Gore to take the dais.
Thank you, Mugdha. I think I should shorten that a little bit. But warm welcome. Very good evening to everyone. It's a special day, and we are very grateful to have all of you here. Okay, so I'm going to talk a little bit about, well, they've already taken me a little further ahead, like the film, so I need to go back. Okay, good. I'm going to talk about, the theme stays more or less similar to what we did last year, a broad overview of what's going on. But since this is a day of reflection, I will take a few minutes to talk a little bit about the general economy, about consumption, because when we talk about numbers, when we talk about going to 5 and 7 and 10 trillion dollars, we want to understand what that means and how those numbers arrive. Okay, India, the macro picture, our current nominal GDP is $3.7 trillion. Our GDP rank is 5th globally. In terms of purchase parity, we are at 13.1 trillion USD, or we are ranked 3rd globally. Our forecast is to reach 7 trillion USD by 2030. Now, reflect upon that, right? The first trillion from our independence in 1947 took 60 years. The second took 7. The third took 5. So the culmination of all of those was 72 years to achieve the first 3 trillion. This year, we will be somewhere during maybe the second half of this year, we'll hit 4 trillion. And thereon, the next 3 trillion are supposed to be achieved in the next 6 years. So of which maybe the first trillion will take 2.5 to 3. So there's going to be great acceleration in GDP numbers. And I want to focus on what that means, how those numbers come, and what we should be looking for. Okay. Macroeconomy, banking in very, very good shape. This is a very key aspect, whenever you want to grow and when balance sheets have to expand and the country needs rapid investments, you have to ensure that balance sheets are not leveraged far too much. And at the moment, I think we are fiscally in very good shape. Our debt to GDP ratio is the same as in 2005 at 81%. External debt reasonable at 5.3%. Corporate debt, the good news is really significantly lean. And bad loans at both public and private banks have really been cleaned up. We are at multi-year lows. We have the third largest startup ecosystem in the world. And we have world-leading digital infrastructure which helps us leverage our financial ecosystem, our services, etc. We have massive tailwinds for India. Everyone speaks about where India is at inflection, but we have to break those down. There are so-called regulatory aspects to that. There are technology enablers, and there are demographic aspects. The regulatory and technology aspects are, based on the regimes that kind of put them in place. We hope that they continue the way they have. They can be taken away overnight, unfortunately, but the demography can't be taken away. So demographically, we have favorable tailwinds as well. Our economy is rapidly formalizing. Our tax reform, I think even on this forum, everyone is aware of what we've done with the GST. And UPI, which is a very big game changer, your ability to pay using your mobile phone, very small sums of money, and turning rapidly cashless. I won't say we are cashless at all, but we are rapidly going to that route. What that is also doing is allowing people the opportunity to understand consumer behavior, allowing NBFCs to understand how credible a small vendor of fruits is, how credible a small vendor of peanuts is. If he or she wants a $500 or $1,000 loan, you have the ability to check those their banking transactions in a jiffy and decide in a few minutes whether that person is loan worthy or not, with a 97-98% accuracy. So that is a game changer. Access to credit at the lower end of the pyramid will change fortunes for many. Decarbonization as a major theme, you know that we are a signatory to all the climate treaties, and we are rapidly investing in solar, in renewable energy. We have a waste to wealth theme that is going. There are many ways in which we can speak about this, but we are already behind time. I'm going to kind of step back. There are other aspects I want to focus on here. Atmanirbhar Bharat, Make in India. Everyone discusses how manufacturing is a very big focus, as it should be. Because job creation is the need of the hour. And without a large-scale boost to manufacturing, without import substitution, without making in India for India and making in India for the world, we are not going to be able to create the 7-8 million jobs a year that we require to create till 2034-35. Having said that, while the focus of India is manufacturing, we should take a step back and understand that it is consumption that drives India's GDP. Manufacturing is 17% of India's GDP. It will, of course, accelerate in a big way over the coming 7-8 years. But consumption drives India's GDP. 62% of India's GDP is driven by consumption. Let's look at this consumption in more nuanced detail, how India consumes, how the incomes are distributed, and how that impacts consumption. So we are 1.4 billion people, with an average family size of say 4.5 to 4.6 people, which makes it about 300 million families. But that is a generalization. If you see the family size, Tamil Nadu has 3.5 people per family, Delhi has 5, Uttar Pradesh has 6.2, and Maharashtra has 4.7, which is more or less near the national average. So sizes are different, demographics are different, consumption patterns are different. This is a generalization for broad thematic. We are a very young country with a median age of 28. 2/3 of India is aged below 34. But this doesn't mean that more people are born every year. Our birth rate is today in 2023 at 16.8 per thousand versus 26.7 versus 2000. So the 400 million people we have added in the last 20 years are also a big factor is longevity there. Life expectancy when I was born and PMA I was born in 1973 was 49. In 1997, when I started working with PMAI, was 61, and it's 70 years today, and continues to improve. That means that the demographic is changing, the demographic is shifting, and consumption patterns also change. Your needs change as you age. There is a huge addition to workforce that will happen till 2035, and therefore job creation is the key. Politicians get that. Our unemployment rate today is at over 8%. It used to be at 4% about 6-7 years ago, in spite of all the efforts that our government is putting in to create jobs. We are still lagging because it's not easy to create 7-8 million jobs a year, right? So job creation is also a key, because this consumption, these entire numbers we talk about, $3.7 trillion GDP going to 5, going to 7, this job creation will drive consumption, which will drive the GDP numbers. So we have to keep that in mind. What is the income demographics of India? So you see how that has evolved, and this is a very important aspect of how India has aged and where our gross national income is. In 2005, our gross national income was $70 billion. We had 219 million homes. Rich and wealthy were 1 million. The upper middle class, classified as anyone more than today's INR 550,000 index to 2005, right, was 16 million. Lower middle class was 51 million, and low income families were 150 million. In 2020, our gross national income has gone to $134 billion. Homes are at 293 million. Rich and wealthy are at 8 million. Upper middle class at 61 million. Lower middle class at 97 million. And low income families reduced by 23 million to 127 million. So the journey from, say, 1 trillion to 3 trillion dollars has helped reduce poverty in a large way, because low income families have shifted to the lower middle class. Lower middle class is moving to the upper middle class, right? And that also changes consumption preferences and discretionary spending. In 2030, though, where we are talking about $7 trillion, is the big game changer. You will see a gross national income. These are all national estimates, census. I have sources available. If anybody requests them, I can share them. It's $278 billion with 386 million homes anticipated. The rich and wealthy will grow again significantly to 29 million. And the upper middle class will accelerate about 2.5x to 168 million. The lower middle class will be again a significant jump, 132 million. Low income will shrink substantially. And this will mean again a very, very significant change in the way India consumes. Lower middle class and upper middle class consumes rather differently than the low income group. 1 in 4 households are in upper income category today. This will become 1 in 2 households by 2030. That is the pace of change we are going to see. And that will mean India's consumption pattern will change rapidly. 70 million households will transfer from low income, and that will again mean a significant growth in discretionary consumption in India. So the 300 million families, how is well distributed today? On a scale of 1 to 10, if you consider 1 is a poor farmer, 1 to 100, and 100 is Mr. Ambani, the richest Indian. 99 to 100, that is 1% of households, own 34% of India's wealth. 90 to 100, which is 10% of households, they own 62% of India's wealth. And 80 to 100, which is 20% of households, which is in the top percentile of 20, own 86% of India's wealth. Reflect on that. 20% of top India owns 86% of its wealth. And this is the reason, if you see that the disparity there, you will see the explanation for why India today has only 86 million credit cards for 1.4 billion people, or 96 million passports, right? This is reflecting on your demographics, your income demographics. 66 million people pay taxes in India. They filed an income tax return. The tax collection efficiency is not bad though. We are at, this number is inching up every year as we figure out ways to make sure that our digital infrastructure is tracking more and more transactions. People are becoming more and more compliant. But we are at 11.6% of the GDP in FY24, Western countries were between 18 and 21%. So the top 20%, so this is, by the way, 60 to 70% of Western countries, right? Our average here, which is not bad at all considering where we were even 10 years ago. Tax compliance has improved drastically. And you see it in the numbers with the direct tax collections, indirect tax collections. Consumption, however, is not linked to wealth. You may say that the top 20% own 86% of the wealth, but they don't consume 86%. The top 20% contribute to 70% of our savings and 36% of India's consumption. The bottom 10% contribute to 10% of India's consumption, by the way. So you have to again look at how India consumes, which section or strata of society is consuming what. Numbers are important because GDP growth is linked to consumption. GDP, while manufacturing will grow from 17% today, will grow significantly. Consumption will still be the primary driver. And at 62% of GDP, it's likely that it will pretty much stay there or improve a little. Discretionary consumption is directly linked to income. And today, 16 to 20% of India, which is 48 to 60 million families, drive the delta in Indian discretionary consumption, which is a huge number, right? How many countries can say that there is a trend of premiumization in our country where 48 to 60 million families are going to consume higher and higher quantity, higher and higher values of goods? This is really unforeseen, and this is a once in a lifetime moment. What's changing for these families in a very broad way? I'm not getting into, there are other factors, but double income, women participation. Why I speak about women participation is if you see the number of graduates that are coming in India today, India gets about 60 lakh, 6 million, 7 million graduates a year, and 50%, nearly 48% of those are women, and they're going to the workforce. All these women are getting employed. And what that means is when you get married, instead of a single earning person, you now have a double income family, and that is changing the balance sheet for families as well as their discretionary spends, their aspirational spends. Attitude to credit has changed. So buy now, pay later is the younger generation is very comfortable with buying on credit. You see how someone like a Bajaj Finance has expanded their balance sheet over the last 15 years, and buy now, pay later is a big reality. 2030 estimates, upper income families will be 2.5 times the numbers. I already put that forward, and what that means to consumption we'll only know in hindsight later on, which sector and which segment does well. But I can only tell you in certainty one thing: your consumption of food grain, your consumption of toothpaste, your consumption of consumables, basic consumables at home are directly linked to your population. But your consumption of something like, say, footwear, right? If people bought 2 pairs of shoes, they can buy 3. So your consumption of certain specialities or certain sectors will go up in a very big way. So there are sectors that will inflect far higher. Automotive is an area that is also aligned for growth. We already see the premiumization trends where half of India's cars bought are premium SUVs, more than ₹1 million. This was not the case 5 years ago. You are seeing that play out in our ecosystem as well. India manufacturing, I beg your pardon. We have cheap manpower and solar power, competitive steel, so big boon for engineering. The automotive ecosystem that is huge in India ensures that we have a very large pool of engineering manpower. Import substitution is creating opportunities over a number of sectors. Infrastructure, defense and railways, the government capex over there is really, really strong. And these are sectors which will continue to show very strong growth because we are under-invested in all of those areas. So we'll need probably 2 decades of investment, continued strong investment to bring these up to mark. Construction, tourism, textiles, paper, there are a number of other sectors which will follow. The government has a special focus on these sectors because job creation potential is large and we need to create jobs. So there will be incentives that the government will roll out to make sure that these sectors progress well. So automotive trends, automotive production trends. You see over here, no surprises, passenger vehicles, very, very strong growth. Commercial vehicles, again a good year. Last year, we'll see how it goes this year. Three-wheelers, strong. Two-wheelers, continuing to improve marginally, but way below their 2019 numbers. Domestic sales trends, again reflecting strong sales for passenger vehicles. Commercial vehicles as well. Two-wheelers are struggling, but coming back. Automobile export trends, passenger vehicles showing good uptick. Three-wheelers had struggled a little bit, but two-wheelers seems to have bottomed out. They may do better here on. This is a slide I showed last year, but I think it's a very, very nice slide because it shows you the numbers from FY 2011. You see how the passenger vehicle segment is at an all-time high. We continue to improve from here. And the two-wheeler ecosystem is struggling now. Commercial vehicles strong again. So FY 24 growth forecast, 6 to 9% for passenger vehicles. Sales estimate of 4.1 million units. FY 25 growth forecast or 3 to 6% over FY 24. You're talking of a high base effect, reduced pent-up demand. But on the other hand, the counterbalance is there is a strong preference for personal mobility, and urban consumer is inclined to consider hybrid vehicles and e-mobility as well. Semiconductor supplies are stable, so at the moment there is no overhang for supply. Trends again, you see passenger vehicles, more and more utility vehicles being preferred, so SUVs remain the vehicle of choice. Entry-level car sales decline because of the increase in vehicle prices. Rural India continues to struggle a little bit for a number of reasons, cotton prices, soya prices, subdued, some subsidies taken away, etc. But they're coming back, a good Rabi crop, so I think rural demand there, people are optimistic about rural demand, at least in the near term. Decline in disposable income for lower income households because of inflation also, and majority of the new launches are recognizing the trend and going towards the high value. Value growth greater than volume growth, obviously with the shift in product mix towards premium cars, this shift continues. Diesel powertrain has stabilized, and CNG powertrain mix last year was 11.5, it's gone to 13. So despite the CNG price increase, you get better mileage, your total cost of ownership is better. So CNG continues to do well. E-mobility, EV market share at 2.3% in CY23. Of course, everyone is aware of this decline in battery cell prices, reduced by all EV players, and good growth expectations in select geographies, courtesy the reductions that they've made. Hybrid cars also pretty strong, impressive. So market share up from 11.5 to 12.6%. And once again, urban consumers tend to prefer looking at hybrid solutions as well. Average age of passenger vehicle is greater than 7 years, so replacement demand will continue to be strong in the foreseeable future. Dealer inventory levels are high at 55 to 58 days, so apparently pretty comfortable. OEMs have a robust order book. You're looking at PV OEM capex. They are following through. This is a slide I showed last year again, but they are following through on these investments. Investments stay strong for the passenger vehicle industry. Significant outlay announced towards capacity increase across OEMs. The capex continues. For CV, well, we've talked about this. Replacement demand due to scrappage policy, manufacturing push is creating demand, etc. Better road infra is reducing transit time. But there is always a law of unintended consequences that you have to look at. So with the government working so much on railways, increasing train speeds and so on, there is going to be some competition emerging at some point of time with the railways moving some of those goods. There could be an overhang in the demand delta. I'm not saying that there is going to be a drastic impact, but you have to make allowance for the fact that the railways are coming back. It was the railway inefficiency that created demand for the long distance commercial vehicles. And that is how, typically developing economies or underdeveloped economies develop. There are constraints, those constraints get addressed, and they get addressed in certain ways. And when the consumer has all options and they are spoiled for choice, then they will choose what is the cheapest option. So that arbitrage will play. CVs, strong calendar year F23. So high tonnage commercial vehicles and also higher tonnage. So people are buying higher tonnage trucks. And LCV for last mile connectivity, demand remains strong. MCV demand is weak, it's neither here nor there. And because of the last mile connectivity that you have, you don't have so much demand for these medium term distances anymore. Modest growth in CY24 at 3 to 4% is forecast for the CV ecosystem. Tractors, FY23 estimate 945,000 units, slowdown for 9 months of FY24. Tractor sales down 18% year on year, that's significant. Maharashtra, Karnataka and Telangana have seen really steep drops. I mean, you're talking 20s, 30 kind of percentages. UP sales are the lone kind of, they're bucking the trend, up 6%. Withdrawal of subsidies in Maharashtra played a big role on the tractor demand, and drop in prices in cotton and soya were key factors. But as I spoke earlier, Rabi crop is in good shape, so demand is expected to bounce back. Two-wheelers, demand challenges persist. Buying power eroded at the bottom of the pyramid due to price hikes. The Bharat consumer spend revival is critical for growth to come back. But the good signs are we've had a strong festive season and stable demand subsequent to the same. So there is hope that there is light at the end of the tunnel. And ICRA estimates a growth of 8 to 11% in CY24. E-mobility estimates, all bets off, depends on so many factors, and hazarding guesses are really hazardous. So I'm not going there. 30 to 60% of total sales, some say 70%, could be e-mobility driven. And that's good news for us. FAME 3 subsidy of $1 billion likely for e-mobility. So even without the subsidy, someone like Ola, who dropped the price of their base model right now by 25,000 rupees, which is about $300, saw a 10,000 booking bump. So even without that subsidy, they saw a big bump. So you can imagine what could happen if the subsidy comes into play. Then the total cost of ownership tilts a little more, and you could accelerate the adoption of e-mobility. So watch out for what happens over there, how consumers look at that. Indian auto component industry, 420,000 crores, say $50 billion a year, significant. 49% domestic OEM, exports at 34%, again very significant numbers. You'll see that passenger vehicles and two-wheelers are 2/3 of this market. Okay, going to the PM industry in India. So India data, all PM application. I'm sure some of my colleagues sitting here will look at it very critically, but I hope that this reflects something. At least the historical numbers are there. 2024 estimates, I'm putting my neck on the block. But you see 2023, strong growth here, 49,000 and 13,000, iron and copper. And 2024 estimates are very, very strong. So let's see. If that plays out well, I think all of us are going to be very happy. FY23 market for sintered auto components estimated at 2,500 crore INR a year, which is about $300 million. PM part exports at INR 250 crore a year. We should see a good bump up there again this year. Ferrous powder consumption, again I stated in the previous slide, 49,000, non-ferrous is copper is 13. Sintered parts, kg per vehicle, 4 kilos. These slides are pretty much standard. You see automotive, 80%, as always. Copper-based market for PM components, where appliances continue to dominate. So a conclusion, where are your challenges? So two-wheeler transition, BS4 to BS6, cost increase, rural pain, but you're hoping that there is light at the end of the tunnel. CV, high cost of replacement of vehicle, high fuel prices, and the railways, dedicated freight corridor. So things to watch out for. CV still seem to be in a good spot. Conversion of parts, we have to work on four-wheeler electromobility, but hopefully we will find some good solutions there. Because e-mobility is going to be a significant driver even for four-wheelers in the later years. Opportunities, favorable demand for the internal combustion engine over the medium term. New geographies, exports have a massive potential. One Indian PM part maker is leading the way for all of us. Specialty sintered, already the largest exporter in India, and very inspiring story. You'll hear from Mr. Niranjan tomorrow. Two-wheeler and three-wheeler e-mobility are firm opportunities, and new applications, non-auto, e-mobility, conversion of parts from castings and forgings, etc. There are always going to be opportunities over there. Concluding remarks on PMAI, we In 2019, Mr. Gopinath, my predecessor, mentor, and good friend, and I miss him today. He's not here, unfortunately, because of minor health issue, but he'll be here next year. He took APMA 2019, he took it to a new pinnacle. And then we had a big job to do. We had to move the office from Mumbai, where there were no resources, to Pune, where we are blessed with talent from the COEP, the engineering college. We are blessed with many of our customers, many of our ecosystem players. So this is the perfect move. We've seen that just the push since 2019 to try and find a new office, the engagement with the entire community accelerated, built into something that we call Manthan, where we meet 8 to 12 times a year. We talk about team building, we talk about disrupting ourselves, we talk about thinking like a startup, we talk about wanting to do things in a very different way. The result of that has been these 4 workshops that we've introduced over the last 3 years. The PM Tool Design course in 2021, and I'm grateful to Mr. Sanjay Rastogi here. PM Heat Treatment course, Narsi Chandrachud ji, Doke sir, and Menavlikar ji. PM Plant Safety, kindly taken up by Mr. Khadse, who's not here this evening with us. And the Student Outreach Program by Mr. R. Sridhar, our Governing Council member, hugely successful, 70 students, great feedback, 6th of February 2024, and we're going to repeat that once again this year. The target is to train 150 to 200 students every year, and we will continue that over the medium term. And there are many more things to come. We are still ideating. Manthan continues. We have very strong targets from my colleagues in the Governing Council. We discussed something already. I don't want to jump the kettle, but yeah, we have a lot of work to do over the coming years. So thank you very much. Please let me know if you need a copy of this presentation. I'm happy to send the PDF to you by email. All the best. Enjoy the conference, and wish you good success over the coming year. Thank you.